yang kita raikan keynote speaker Emeritus Profesor Tan Sri Zul, sahabat saya yang lama, ya, khususnya Dato Dr. Denison Surya, who is directing the APPGM-SDG, and his team, Profesor Dato Sri Dr. Suhaiza, pengarah Pusat Kajian Pembangunan Aziz Universiti Melaya, khususnya wakil-wakil daripada empat agama saya, yang pertama ialah Associate Profesor Dr. Nuriah Sharifah daripada Universiti Melaya yang akan bentang kertas mewakili daripada agama Hindu, saudara Surain Kanda, juga rakan saya dah 20 tahun, banyak bantu saya di Delhi selama dulu. Ms. Ho mewakili Suci Foundation, Puan Jasmine Adaickalam mewakili agama Kristian. Jadi kita ada 4 wakil-wakil daripada orang Islam, Christianity, Buddhism dan juga Hinduism, ya. Saya berada di sini sebagai orang yang membantu UAC. This week is a very busy week. I was in UAC 3 days ago, or 2 days ago. I was in UAC again yesterday, last night. Kita bertahlil Almarhum Aziz. I was at APPGM 3 days ago with Dato Dr. Denison, so I'm in 2 places. And I'm pleased to see many of my former colleagues here. Tan Sri Zul was me more than 20 years ago. I was running the Higher Education Ministry, was the Vice-Chancellor of USM, and one of the things I did was to name USM as the apex university in this country. So USM is now called Apex University. That was my dream, and it was then the boss of USM. So we had another Adrian Ewell, who was representing the Minister of National Unity, Dato Ewell, who was with me 20 years ago at the National Economic Council, and my boss here and my free alumni, Mr. Khairul. Thank you for coming. Surain, as I said, was helping me on the ground in Delhi. So I'm saying this because I've been doing a lot of walking. I've been visiting a few places. I don't sit still. I'm on the move every day. Yeah. Last night we finished at about 10:30 at this program at the University of Malaya. Almarhum Aziz, Professor Razak was there, Dr. Zamri, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of IIUM, the former Vice-Chancellor, Professor Dato, Professor Emeritus Dato was there. He gave the speech last night. I like to keep myself involved in as many things as possible. This morning was in Mike, talking about solid waste management in Sabajaya. By the way, today we talk about SDGs. Yeah? One of my last jobs in government was to be the focal point in government to monitor what's happening on the SDG front. That was 2020. Yeah, I was in government in 2 places, but that was one of my last jobs in government. So when I left government about 3 years ago, I thought I want to park myself in organizations which promote SDGs. And that's how I decided to be with Dr. Denison. I've known him for many years, but in particular since 2020, I've been working closely with him. As EPU Minister, that was one of my jobs. I'm passionate about the 17 goals, and that's why I decided to park myself at the University there as well, dealing mainly with poverty and education. This dialogue, of course, Tan Sri Zul is going to deliver the keynote address. I'm here partly because of him. I've not met him for some years. I've seen him on TV, UIA, other places, been to his house in Penang and also in Gombak, or Lake Palace House in Gombak. So we've gone a long way. So it's good to see so many old friends. But let me go back to SDGs. The 17 goals I've been directly involved in SDGs, especially in the last 5 years, since 2020. But as a minister, of course, I was dealing with some aspects of SDGs, but being the focal point in government for SDGs, I became more committed and more passionate about SDGs. And we're here to see how relevant religions are in achieving SDGs. I've been informed by Dr. Su that in 2024, that was the next time we had one in Kanda, but that was from the Islamic perspective, of course. Kelantan being the Islamic Mekah of Malaysia. When you did that in Kelantan, SDGs were discussed only in the context of the Islam or the Muslim religion. But here we are, we have here in this room, I wish as a former politician, I go for numbers, 100, 200, so there's only about 30, 40 of you in front of me, so I'm quite disappointed. There should be more people attending this very important program, and this is about understanding each other. Thank you, Adrian, for coming here representing the Minister. This reflects the focus you are giving priority to this particular subject. By the way, I've been trying to connect the dots in government. I've brought people involved in SDGs together, and in this connection, there are now 20 members of this platform called Partners in Accelerating SDGs. We have universities, CSOs, and the secretary is APPGM. I'm the main driver of that platform. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago at SDG Foundation, which is part of the Ministry of Finance. Next one is going to be in April. And in Malaya, UHC has been working closely with APPGM. I would like to highlight one in particular. There was in March last year, when I was working intensively in this space. I found that people have not been talking too much to each other. They were all talking about SDGs, but they seldom saw each other. So more than 2 years ago, I started this group. 12-13 meetings so far. By the way, in Malaya and APPGM, partly because of my connection, because I'm both in Malaya and also APPGM, I got them to bring all the public universities and about 10 private universities in the program in Putrajaya, officiated by someone from the ministry. And we also have someone, the Vice-Chancellor. By the way, there were 200 participants. All the public universities were there, some reps from private universities, student leaders as well. So one day affair, the program was to bring people together to discuss how universities, public and private, can come together to promote the SDG agenda. So this is one example of the collaboration between APPGM and UAC. The other is multidimensional poverty. This agenda is driven by UNDP, USHA and others. In UM we have those days Professor Fatima Kari, an expert on multidimensional poverty. She did a project with Matam Pau on multidimensional poverty, which I launched in Malaya in early 2022. So that was another program where I brought APPGM and UEC together. They've been talking to each other. We organized some joint programs between UEC and APPGM. One on SDGs, public and private universities. Another was on multi-dimensional poverty. So this is the third major collaboration, this interfaith dialogue. And SDGs are about being just, gender equality, quality education, compassion. Of course, Trump doesn't belong in this category. He's not compassionate. He's got no heart. No heart. His people are killing people, getting out from a number of international organizations. So SDGs have been promoting universal principles, compassion, kindness, justice, quality, no poverty, quality healthcare. So those are the kind of things that we've been promoting. Therefore, these values and safety goals are very relevant to all of us, all religions. So once again, I'm pleased to be able to stand before you to say a few words. And I thought I was going to say anything this morning. By the way, I'm pleased to be here to see so many old friends. Let's work together, all of us Malaysians. This country has been, embracing the SDG agenda for many years. The government's been committed, whether previous government or current government, we all have been committed in promoting the SDG agenda. And hopefully, through this dialogue, we will be able to work together to make sure that Malaysians can enjoy a basic, standard of living. we hope to be able to promote inclusive and sustainable development through what we are doing on the ground. Jadi terima kasih kepada semua dan saya harap dalam masa beberapa minit lagi kita ramai lagi akan masuk dewan ini dan banyak kursi yang kosong. As I said, this is such an important program. Only the second one, the first one, 2024, organized by YBhg Kelantan, Islam and SDGs. Hari ini kita bercakap tentang Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, bagaimana agama-agama ini boleh membantu mencapai SDG, compassion, ihsan, adil, which are very key principles. Terima kasih. Saya mendoakan program ini akan membawa kita bersama dalam usaha untuk membina negara yang lebih hebat, lebih bersatu dan dunia yang lebih makmur, aman, adil dan sejahtera dan saksama. Terima kasih dan saya mohon maaf kerana saya lepas dengar transmisi saya ada hal berserah kepada Dato dan Prof. Razak untuk meneruskannya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Building the synergies on various areas is indeed really helpful, and in the partners meeting is quite significant. And I think that Mustafa made reference to the Kelantan discussions that we had. Actually, we do what is called grounded research and actually go down. Dr. Su is an anthropologist and a sociologist, and so grounded research is our key. That means we go down to the ground to find out what's happening. And when I was part of the team that helped develop this research methodology, I decided that I would go to every parliamentary or as many parliamentary constituencies in Kelantan, because I'm from Selangor and quite alienated from the Islamic base. And so one puasa time, we were in Rantau Panjang. And because it was puasa, all the shops were closed at lunchtime. And then somebody told us, if you went into this rubber small holdings, you will get food there. So we drove in and drove in and drove in and then found this shop in the rubber plantation, which is linked to a Taoist temple. And we found the people at the shop who were cooking wore sarong and they spoke only Malay. And that surprised us. And when we said we want kway teow, they said no pork here. So we said that's okay. And then we discovered that within all Malay kampongs was a huge Taoist temple that then had a lot of Peranakan Chinese who had come long time. They were really Kelantanese Malay speakers. And the older you are, you didn't know Mandarin. The younger ones were going to school. At the same time, we discovered there was this huge Buddhist temple and the Chinese community. And they likewise, the women and all, were all dressed like Malays. The only thing different was their religion. They spoke the same dialect as Malay Muslims in Kelantan. And then to my shock, I was taken to a mosque. And then as I went, I said, this is not a mosque, this is a Chinese temple. And then we discovered it was the Beijing Mosque, and we had a lot of discussions with the Ustaz there. And then we had a dialogue, as Dr. Mustafa said. We brought Christians, we brought Hindus, we brought Muslims, we brought Buddhists, we brought the Taoists together. It was more grassroots discussion in the mosque hall. And then we had a dialogue with the Kelantan government on SDGs and kebajikan Islam. They wanted to brand their version of development. And it was an interesting discussion with the state-based agencies looking at economic, social, environmental concerns. So that's at the real grassroots with the state government and with a mosque that hosted a dialogue with its neighbors who were Buddhist, Taoist, and we brought a Christian and a Hindu in that context. Now, our discussion today is indeed interesting because we have a framework document on SDGs, and that framework document is the Agenda 2030. 2015, post-millennium development goals, the UN after Rio plus 20 formulated this, and all the countries of the world agree, including Malaysia. Now, while that document is significant, I think Khairul was one of them from day one who criticized, not criticized, I think felt there needed to be additional points to it. Because the document took a very secular approach, because the foundations of the SDGs were the human rights declarations and conventions, and it was normative, it was legal, it had moral obligations, but it tried to keep religion out of the ideological basis. So it's very secular to include all religion or ideological positions, because the United Nations is very vast in its emphasis. However, the SDGs through SDG 17 on partnership and multi-stakeholder engagement emphasize that every section of society must be involved, including faith-based organizations, religious organizations, and ideological. You could be an atheist and still be involved in development work. I Googled this morning to see whether there is any UN document on faith and SDGs. And I found in 2019, UNDP in Argentina released a report on faith-based organizations and their involvement directly in the SDGs. It's a very interesting report that UNDP published. And there they took the embryonic faith of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and how they were involved. It didn't include all, but it nonetheless gave a formal endorsement of faith-based organizations that entered dialogue and participation using SDG 17, that they were actors on the ground and had a role in it. Now, I had the privilege last year to go to the Doha conference on the social summit, the World Social Summit in Doha in November 2025. Now, I was shocked with the document because it moved the agenda. Maybe they heard Tanjri Zul and others, and they moved the agenda in the Doha declaration. It's a declaration not as comprehensive as the SDGs, but it's a document that added on and strengthened. It brought multidimensional poverty, it brought other things that the SDGs had but didn't spell it out clearly. I wanted to read Article 16 that is relevant to us. Because here is an endorsement through a UN document at an ideological position one. The previously it was just secular. Ideological position of faith and religious thought one in the Doha, and also the deliverables. So in Article 16 of the Doha Declaration, we remain committed to a political, economic, ethical, and spiritual vision. I think in the Agenda 2030, the word spiritual is not, because of the divisive nature of religion at the global level. Spiritual vision for social development that is based on human dignity, human rights, equality, respect, peace, democracy, mutual responsibility and cooperation, and full respect, the word again, full respect for various religious and ethical values and cultural backgrounds of the people. Very inclusive. So it was saying, what is your religious belief? What is your religious value? How does that bring in the theme of social development, people, planet, environment, prosperity, good governance, ethical sort of living? And this declaration then brings that in a significant way. I thought it was very significant. I'm writing an article, a book that Dr. Ken is bringing out on what is the meaning of development in Malaysia, and we are reviewing the Doha Declaration in that context. I think just to add on one or two more points, and I would stop, that the 13 Malaysia Plan is a good background for us, not just Agenda 2030 or the Doha Declaration. The 13th Malaysia Plan, with the emphasis on the third sector, government, private sector, the third sector. And historically, religious institutions have played a key role even before governments came into being. That means during the British time, there were a lot of missionary movements that set up schools and hospitals, and there were cultural sectors, Islamic groups that set up orphanages, community-based groups, and so forth, and Islamic Buddhist institutions, Hindu, like Sai Baba movement, the SMC movement, that has a strong motivation from religious-based and value. You know, I was significantly, I mean, all this readings. I thought the people from Zakat made a fantastic connection between Zakat and sustainability. This was on the Edge last weekend. That they linked Zakat to social impact and climate responsibility. And I'm reminded after my regular visits to Kelantan that the Aradum or the alternative pawn shop is a very good model that brings SDGs for the poor, that it's not an exploitative system, that the Islamic tradition or institution, but they are not being branded as SDG or SDG compliant or ESG. So I think this is important in our discussion, and for even Zakat to suddenly link it. It's not just getting into the bandwagon, but I think they were rebranding themselves within this context of it. And so I think from the panel and discussion, we can learn something. I just want to conclude that faith can impact us in two ways. And this is important for our discussion. I think one, faith is a motivating factor for many of us in our involvement. Faith can be very insular, or faith could be very inclusive. So faith that motivates us to see change. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, the change must begin with you or with us before you can try and change others. So for those of us in this community public advocacy, that faith motivates us, and ideology might motivate us, but faith and religion motivates many of us from the various traditions that we come from. That's firstly. Secondly, we also have recognized, those of us working among the poor, that ideology or strategy cannot change human nature. You need something more. You need values, you need principles, and that comes from the spirit within. And religion plays that. It could be Islam, it could be Buddhism, it could be Hinduism, it could be Christianity, and we can do comparative analysis. Some of us are motivated in one way, but how World Bank linked spirituality to development and poverty eradication, that you need the poor to be empowered. You need the poor to feel self-empowered with dignity, and that comes from a spirit within. And I hope our discussion and the panelists would help us in this understanding one, and I'm sure Tan Sri Zul will set the base for it, but more so to see how we can collaborate. I think religions in Malaysia also work in isolation. They don't have a Dato Mustafa from the religious ulama or religious side to bring people together. But faith-based organizations might need to talk more together to bring themselves together rather than isolate and enable harmony and strengthening of the nation. So I thank University Malaya, I thank Dr. Su and her team for hosting this, and I believe the documentation and then eventually bringing the policy references to parliamentarians would be very important. So thank you very much and all the best for today.
Products. From Denison, also a long-time friend, and many a times also we talk about what we're going to do for education. And I am indeed very blessed to be here today with all of you, giving a kind of a point of view after being with sustainability from the year 2005. And as Topa said it rightly, this is one of the channels that we get into Apex University. When we were given the choice to do an Apex University, we did a scenario plan. There are 6 scenarios, and one of the scenarios say sustainability-led university, and we picked that as the future of what university is all about. 2005, the word sustainability was new, and now I think it is part and parcel of the cash phrases. Yeah. So I would like to talk to you about about my own understanding of sustainability after being involved in more than 20 years. Yeah. I'm trying to promote, quote-unquote, the word sejahtera, because I think the word sejahtera actually means sustainability. So when Dr. Denison was talking about zakat is trying to jump into the bandwagon, I think the bandwagon is already been there. It's just that the bandwagon is called sustainable development. If you use the word sejahtera, it is part and parcel of zakat long time ago. Now, we talk about this because we want to contextualize sustainable development. It is not a Western-centric, it is not a United Nations terminology, it is a terminology of the people, it is the terminology of the grassroots. And until and unless you understand what your culture is all about, where it is rooted, and what sort of words do we use, I think we will miss this thing for a long time. Yeah? So when I was introduced to this, and I think all of us were introduced to sustainable development, the definition was something to do what the present is doing without compromising the future. Yeah, that is a kind of a standard definition from the Brampton Report of 1987. Now later on we asked, what about the past? Why are you talking about the present, which is already a compromised present? Yeah, with all this global warming and so on and so forth, and then talking about the future, isn't the past important? So we did some research. We went to Bali and found out where is sustainable development, quote unquote, in Bali when they do all this subak system, where they plant this rice on terrace and so on and so forth. And we found that sustainable development in Bali is about 1,000 years old, based on a principle called Trikina Karana. That is the sustainable development. Means what it means, the 3 principle is man and God. The 2nd principle is man and environment. The 3rd principle is man and man. That is sustainable as far as Bali is concerned, and that is 900 years old. So which one do you want to follow? The Brampton Report, which is in 1987, or the one that Bali has put within the cultural context of Nusantara. So we thought that is more relevant to us when we talk about sustainable development within the context. Then we went to Bhutan and also understand where Bhutan comes from when they talk about GNH, gross national happiness. They don't talk about GDP. In 1970s, when they announced they are interested in gross national happiness, where do they come from? It comes from their own constitution, which is 600 years old, which says that the role of the government is to make the people happy. If the government cannot make the people happy, then they say the government will cease to exist. If you use that phrase now, many government will cease to exist. So the G and H to them is more important than GDP. And that's why everything now in Bhutan is about the human well-being, happiness, and so on and so forth, subset to many other things, right? And we go to Thailand. Thailand has got this sufficiency economy promoted by the king then. It's already 100 years old. So our question is basically, if we start to contextualize sustainable development with our own cultural environment, we may end up somewhere. And this is where we start to dig up. Where does the word sejahtera come from? And I'm going to talk about sejahtera in the context of the grassroots and where does this come from? Yeah. We find again here, there's a statement, orang asli is not happy with the things that we do because they are left out. The definition does not bring them in. Yeah? And the purpose is basically to bring support, to create more awareness, and to do good. To do good, I think, is important. At the end of the day, when you talk about sustainable development, what impact does it have on the ground? It's not what publication you've got, it's not how good you are, how do the people benefit on the ground? And I think this is where Tokpa is coming from. Yeah? I've given 3 questions, and I'm trying to attend this. The first question is about faith. I want to introduce this concept of sejahtera. Sejahtera is, I think, faith-based. It doesn't matter which religion or where you come from. The word sejahtera is there embedded in all faith, whether we like it or not. And how do you talk about it in the context of the government? We've got a song, Sejahtera Malaysia, but I think when we sing that song, we don't talk about sustainable development at all. But that song has been there, and I'm trying to connect with it, and how do you work? These, I think, we're going to work on, and I'll try to convince you at what point we are today. Where do I start? When I was asked to be the Vice-Chancellor in year 2000, to run a university suddenly becomes a problem. Because we do not know what university is all about. We don't even know what education is all about until this document comes out. Yeah? It's a Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan, launched in 1988 and then renewed in 1996. Been there for more than 30 years, but nobody speaks about it. You can even ask the Vice-Chancellor now if they understand what sustainable development is all about. In the context of Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan, I can bet my last dollar most of them do not understand this. Because this is a document that has been obscure for a long time. So when I get this document and I start to read it, then it begins to make certain sense with me. Let's read it a little bit. Yeah? Pendidikan di Malaysia adalah satu usaha berterusan, yeah? Ke arah perkembangan potensi individu secara menyeluruh dan bersepadu. Berterusan means lifelong. Menyeluruh means holistic. Bersepadu means integrated. The words that we use today after 35 years. Malaysia has been there earlier. But we never realized this because this is not a document that we consult all the time. Yeah? Untuk apa? Untuk melahirkan insan seimbang dan harmonis. You have to be balanced and harmonious. Harmony to me is basically, we cannot be balanced perfectly all the time, but there is a room for us to maneuver. And that's the word harmony as far as I'm concerned. Alright? It is not about marketability. It is not about employment. It's about, are you balanced and are you harmonious? If you're balanced and harmonious, certainly you're marketable. But sometimes you're marketable, but you're not balanced, you're not harmonious. And this is the problem that we face today. And dia kata bersepadu dan harmonis dari segi apa? Dari segi seimbang dan harmonis dari segi intelek, rohani, emosi, jasmani, the 4 things. Look at our curriculum today. We have got intellect, a little bit of co-curriculum. Where is emosi? Where is spirituality? Exactly what Edison is talking about. So when COVID comes in, we find that our students are not adequately balanced in terms of emotion. We've got now problems of mental health. Why? Because we have not been educated to balance ourselves emotionally and spiritually. We are good in these 2 things. The other 2, we just left it out. right? And then what does he say? Berdasarkan kepada apa? Berdasarkan kepada kepatuhan kepada Tuhan. There you go. This is your faith. I'm taking the word Tuhan in the context of rukun negara, kepercayaan kepada Tuhan. That's it. Right? And all of us has got a stake in this. So in other words, when you talk about this balance, it's not Harvard, it's not Cambridge, it's not Oxford. It is your own religion and your own faith. But if you are not educated in that, how can you be balanced? Already spirituality is not there. Already emotion is not there. How can we balance? If you talk about the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. And that's the individual level. All of us must be realized in that particular sense. And then you talked about the second one, usaha ini adalah untuk melahirkan warga negara Malaysia and all those things, berpengetahuan, berketerampilan, berakhlak mulia, bertanggungjawab, and so on and so forth. And finally, what does he say? Mesti mendapat kesejahteraan diri. To know whether you are educated in Malaysia, you must be sejahtera diri. And how can you tell this? How do I know that is sejahtera today? How do I know most of us? How do I know I am sejahtera today? How do you operationalize it? And this is education that we have missed. I will repeat that. It is education that we have missed. And that's why we talk about bullying today. Because none of us know whether we are sejahtera. We do not know how to manifest sejahtera. We can only bully people. And we think that bullying is a problem of the youngsters. The bullying is a problem of the education system that will not meet this standard. Because it says the moment you sejahtera diri, then dia kata kita boleh memberi sumbangan terhadap keharmonian keluarga, masyarakat dan negara. Only by being sejahtera, then you can contribute in a sense of keluarga, of course yourself first, then keluarga, then masyarakat, then negara, in that order. If you are not sejahtera, you don't have a good family, you don't have a good family, you don't have a good society, you don't have a good society, you don't have a good nation, you don't have a good world. But it doesn't happen that way. So this is the crux of the thing that I'm using now and trying to understand what is this word sejahtera. For 20 years reading documents, and there's no document, Topa, that talks about sejahtera except for the education document. Economy tidak ada, politik tidak ada, social tidak ada. This is the only document that use the word sejahtera, and therefore I think we in the education system must develop this in the context of education. And how do we do that is a question that I'm trying to convince you. Yeah? So there are keywords. So what is sejahtera? I've asked a lot of people, including Nobel, sastrawan negara, they don't give me convincing answers. But as you look into the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan again, there are keywords that actually comes out very quickly. One is seimbang, the other one is harmonis, there you are. Yeah? One is the word jasmani, then intellect, which is akal, then you have emosi, then you have rohani, there you are. Right? Then you have the word taat kepada Tuhan, you have the word etika, and you have the word akhlak, there you are. Yeah? In fact, if you see that, it is spelled sejahtera. S-E-J-A-H-T-E-R-A. Whether it's coincidental, I don't know. But whoever does this, they did a brilliant job. And therefore, the moment you talk about sejahtera, all this must be within you. Is the education system providing this? In other words, is the education system itself sejahtera in its nature? If it is not, now how do you expect the student to be sejahtera? How do you expect the students to be sejahtera? The teachers to be sejahtera? The whole system. I think this is a question that I'm bringing to you now. If you talk about sejahtera in the context of sustainable development, where are we heading at the moment in time? And I do hope, at the end of the day, we get an insan sejahtera. That is the final product of the education system yang boleh menyumbang tadi itu. No insan sejahtera, no sumbangan. Kalau ada sumbangan pun, sumbangan yang tidak bermakna dan tidak berarti. So the system must talk about a whole person approach. This is the word holistic yang kita katakan tadi itu. And the holistic means you don't only work with your head and your hand, you also must work with your heart, the spirituality that was mentioned about. All right? And how do you do that? Is basically this is what we're suggesting, that education system must be humanized. Menjadikan manusia dulu sebelum menjadi doktor, menjadi jurubicara, menjadi whatever. It must be the human being first, and that human being is the product of the insan sejahtera that you talk about, and it is an expanding idea. It is not sustainable in the sense that it remains sustained, but it is progressive. You move, and you develop this. What you are trying to do, APPGM, I think, is a fantastic example in that sense. So that is the context of sejahtera. I'm talking about humanizing. Means you must give power to the people you educate. It is not a one-size-fits-all, it is not a monologue, it is a dialogue, and this is exactly what we are trying today, and use this dialogue to achieve as much as sejahtera is concerned. And I use this idea of a bicycle, because people normally say, if you want to stay in a balance, you must move on a bicycle. You stay on a bicycle which is not moving, you will be imbalance. So the balance idea is an important idea, and from their empowerment, and this is something that we've been talking so many times, and autonomy, freedom, discussion, debate, these are all part and parcel of empowerment. We don't have that. I think this is where we are today stuck. Okay? So at the end of the day, when you are empowered, you can move, and that movement will create the change, and that the change is the one we need today. What is the kind of change? To build resiliency as far as social crisis is concerned, and COVID-19 is one experiment that we have failed. We find suddenly student cannot cope, even in UIA, student wants to commit suicide, and this never happened before. But why? Because we are inadequate in terms of balancing the human person that we talked about, right? So, transformational. It is transformational nature, it is not linear, it is not incremental, it is quantum leap, frog leaping. This is something that we talked about so many times. Yeah? And just to make sure that my words are good, we have written a book on it. Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan, that won also Anugerah Perdana, and talks about the depth of falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan, the way it solves problem as far as Malaysia is concerned. Right? So, sejahtera is in that context, right? So how do I sort of put it into practice? Somebody asked me, what about circular economy? Okay, let's look at the word sejahtera. We talk about balance. Now this balance will have to be actualized. There must be a behavioral part of it. You cannot say I'm balanced, but you are not demonstrating you are balanced. So S is seimbang, A is akhlak. Dalam akhlak kita mesti ada keseimbangan itu. You talk about rasuah, you must be 100% rasuah proof. Makan babi, tak makan babi, that's not an issue. You talk about rasuah and you are still living with rasuah, then you are not insan sejahtera in that particular step. So what you do and what people see you do must be the same. Ilmu dengan amal mesti satu. Kita tak boleh ilmu lain, amal lain. And this is, I think, a big problem in this country today. Okay? Second thing, we talk about ethics and spirituality. Etika dengan rohani. Okay, you got ethics, all right? Fine, but that must be guided by spirituality. In other words, whatever you believe, whatever you profess, it must be within the context of that ethical thing, right? The third pair is about Jasmine, E is emotion. Physically, you look okay, but inside, you do not know what's happening. This is what's happening to you today. They look outside perfectly, but inside their emotion moves from range to range. And suicide, depression, and all those things are coming up because emotionally they are not trained or taught to sort of control it. All right? And back to the whole idea of spirituality. And the last one is about what they call akal, and the third one is Tuhan. In other words, you get all this freedom, fine, but it must be divine guided. They must be within the framework of divinity, and so on and so forth. When all these are perfectly balanced, and this is what education is all about, then only you arrive at the final point, which is ish, and there's harmony. I mean, this falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, when you look at it, it is a wonderful, wonderful document that nobody realized how to make it happen. And once you get that falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, we will then get sejahtera as the framework that we need to do. You can forget about, from my point of view, the word lestari, because it's not even a Malay word. You go to the makcik on the ground and tanya, makcik lestari ke hari ini? She will blink at you, and one makcik was smart enough mengatakan, makcik tak pakai Listerine, makcik pakai Colgate. The closest word lestari is Listerine to her. Right? So I want to say that let's use the word sejahtera within the context of the culture that we understand it, and the word sejahtera, I think, is even more than the word lestari or mampan. Mampan came into the dictionary in the year 2004. It wasn't there until later when Dewan Bahasa brought it in. So when this happens, then there are values that is attached to it, and this is where your spirituality comes. There's a value of sympathy. You cannot do sustainability without understanding what sympathy is all about. Because at the end of the day, what you are doing today is basically to give back to a kind of a feeling. Yeah? If you cannot do better, of course empathy is better. That you go there and work it on the ground, the way I see how you do your project. Yeah? And the last one is what we call berhati budi. I want to use the word this as a substitute for compassion before we use the word compassion. Kita pandai sustainability, we make it something. Berhati budi ini adalah salah satu daripada sifat manusia yang sejahtera in that particular context. So that is a set of value. There are many more, but at least there are three. Once a set of value is within you, then you are sustainable in that particular context, and that sustainability shows that you are the insan sejahtera that is ready to contribute to the development of the individual, the society, and of course the world as a whole. And I want to give you an example on this. When I was doing this at USM in the year 2010, two Koreans came to see me and they said, tell me about sejahtera, and I explained it to her. Yeah? But 2015, they invited me to a place called Tongyong Topa. I think you may want to visit that. And they've got what they call campus sejahtera. They invested 20 million US to build that campus sejahtera. Now they've got beside it another, what they call natural forest. They call it sejahtera forest. So the word sejahtera, if you go to Busan, you say, I want to go to sejahtera campus, the taxi will take you. The word sejahtera in Korean is now understood by the Koreans themselves. Last year, 100,000 people visited the center and learned about sejahtera from the Koreans, not the Malaysians. I want to reclaim this back. It's our word. And I asked him, why do you want to use the word sejahtera? They got the 1970s, we came to Malaysia and borrowed the word gotong royong from you. Semil undung. And because of gotong royong, we are progressive now as compared to Malaysia itself. But we are so progressive that suicide rate is #1 problem in Korea because they are not able to balance the values that we talked about. Now we are taking this and putting this back into our education system, and that is the experiment they are doing. They are flourishing like men. And now the person who started the Sejahtera campus in Korea is now moved to UNESCO in Paris so that they can introduce the concept of Sejahtera worldwide. Hey, we are there. Until and unless we move accordingly, we will be left behind, or somebody else will hijack the ideas that we are talking about. Okay? So what this is all about, to me, is a question of balance, which is not in sustainable development. We talk about definition of sustainable development, they still talk about growth economy, which is fine, but where is the balance? Eh? And this is what I'm saying. you first of all need to balance outside. The microcosmos is the environment and everything that we talked about, right? But you need to counter that with a balance inside, which is the mind and the heart. Yeah, somebody said, what you call the heart of education, the education of the heart. But we have not been doing that in this particular context. Yeah? And this is where I think the word sejahtera comes in, and it talks about the balance between the two. Education in Sejahtera is how to balance within yourself your own microcosmos before you even attempt to understand the macrocosmos. And this is what the Tripitaka Karana talks about. Yeah? Balance within, and then you balance outside. You cannot be talking about the global warming when you're within you have no balance of what it's all about. How do you balance it? And I think this is what education is all about. But now we are supplemented with this. It is different version, different language and so on and so forth. But they don't talk about balance. They don't talk about the heart. The spirituality that the nation is talking about is not there. We've got number 17, fine, yeah? But 17 is not enough. So in UIE, we've invented another one called SDG 18, which is spirituality. And there's a book on it now. So we're still in this lopsided, imbalanced state when we talk about sejahtera in our own context. Yeah? The microcosmos becomes very small. We're talking about all the big things, COP19, COP20, yeah? But what is with it? Who talks about this in the context we want to talk about? Sustainable development in different languages and so forth. You can put it in various ways you want to put it, but still, unless and until you work within, I don't think you will arrive at the point you want. Yeah? So I want to conclude just by looking at this. We have got 4 elements on sejahtera. One is a human and its own divine guidance, yeah? And that guidance could be an algorithm that comes from nature, right? And then you move to you and yourself, Tuhan, kita dengan diri kita, and then there's a microcosmos that we talked about, and then we go into human and human beings, the big society, and this is where the grassroots are. Yeah, you don't want to target only the elitists, the universities, but what about the kampung people, the example that you gave in Kelantan, the Taoists, the Buddhists, and so on and so forth. They are there, but nobody discovers them because we are not really into that kind of a business. And then we go into nature, all right, and that's where the microcosmos is. And this is where I think we need to be challenged. How do you balance it? The things that we believe, the things that we do are the same. It is not different. Say something else, but do different things. Right? And then many examples of this, which we are not happy about. How do you put that in balance? And to put that in balance is to start articulating the sustainable development goal within the balance in the understanding of the faith. I've given examples here. Here with USIM, we have got what we call the Mizan Center. USIM is doing a fantastic work on this Mizan Center where we actually bring in the aspect amanah, aspect ikra, aspect khalifah, and rahmatan lil alamin. Again, the word has been spoken, but there is no what we call translation to it. And you can see there, we have got also the sustainable 18, which is spirituality. Yeah? And when we put this book out, the Christian, the Buddhist, and the Hindu say, what about other religions? I say spirituality is spirituality. It doesn't matter where you come from. Yeah? And that's, I think, where the word spiritual natives comes in. I am not a digital native. We have been told that we are digital native. I'm not a digital native. I'm a spiritual native. And as being a spiritual native, then I can understand how to manage the digital world. If I'm a digital person, I will not be able to move into the spiritual world. And this is the problem with AI today. Nobody talks about that. Yeah? All of us are into AI. Our spirituality has been sort of compromised in many ways because we do not know how to handle this. We must be spiritual native first. That is why Australians say below 16, no social media for you. At a particular period, they want to develop this human dimension first before they go into the technical or the technological part. Now, Norway is following, and I was told Malaysia is also following it, but let's hope that we do it in the right way. And finally, I think we go into the last point, and which is a kind of way of life that we want to make it happen, not because of a program, but because it's part of living. Not because it's politically popular, but because it is our survival for the next time to come. Yeah? And finally, interfaith dialogue. Yeah, we will talk about the mind and how you reach out for the microcosmos outside, making things good, all the things you are doing. Congratulations. As digital natives, spirituality is not there. I think it's time now to add it, to engage with the microcosm and to bring in the spirituality out of us so that we can be together on a platform and talking about the same language, so that we can move into a higher goal, humanizing education, bringing in the balance, and finally taking it into a holistic way, as Sejahtera has managed to us, and we get the balance not only within, but also outside us, where the heart and the brain works together. Indeed, this is the latest finding. Topa mengatakan bahawa the heart speaks to the brain many more times as compared to the brain speaks to the heart. This is the latest finding. The heart will not be able to work alone, and the brain is not be able to work alone until you engage the heart. And that's why social, emotional, intelligence is more important than just IQ alone in this particular context. So, being human, that is Insan Sejahtera, is essentially about the state of being the whole human person made of many parts. Right? So that is the many parts. But that many parts, like Topa said, needs to be connected. So we talk about the whole is greater than the sum of its part. In other words, we cannot just concentrate on one part of the body and not the other part of the body. We need to make it together, and that's where the whole person comes in. We've talked about the physical part. What about the intellectual part? What about the emotional part? What about the spiritual part? Without it, the whole person is still not there. Right? And this is where we want to suggest that let's talk about humanizing education, including understanding what Sejahtera is all about, and that will be then your relationship. That will be the community that you work with, yeah? The environment. And finally, these economic things, which is important and practical, also needs to be there. But it is all in the whole context of the humanizing education that links the human person and the environment, not just the environment. There's no such thing bagi saya lah, kesejahteraan ekonomi kalau manusia ini tidak sejahtera. There's no such thing as sejahtera politik kalau manusia ini tidak sejahtera. The manusia must be sejahtera first, then the rest will follow suit. Yeah? So what I tend to do here is basically look at the other factors that's affecting us, not tangibly, but intangibly. There's no numbers to this. Yeah? There's no ranking to this. There's no percentage to this. It is how you live the way you should be living as a person with faith and so on and so forth. And that is how I think we look at it. Yeah? And coming back into the balanced world, and that balanced world is where we say spiritual comes first. Without spirituality, the rest becomes nonsensical as far as I'm concerned, and that's where Sejahtera comes in, right? And I would like to say the balance must be a permanent sort of feature where we learn how to make sure that everything stays the way it is. So connecting the heart and the mind is one of the primary things, and I don't think anybody has done this in the way that we want it to be. So how do you bring it back? And then the word Sejahtera will be manifested at the end of the day, and you then begin to see. Okay? You talk about digital native, bagi saya, is a dehumanizing, reductionist concept by summing up the parts, but they are not holistic. The holisticness is something that is important, menjadikan manusia itu sesempurna yang ada. In the UNESCO punya document, dia kata, a complete human person. And that's what it is. It is not a fragmented human person pieced together like a jigsaw, as it were. So what we are trying to do, at least we have attempted it in UIA, we look at the community, this is where your grassroots are. How do you go back to the community by using the university and root it into the community, not just the industry, and then try to change how the community looks well. So we end up with a model called community. I think if Zainal is here, we'll be able to tell you. We have now engaged more than 10,000 students, going into more than 600 communities around the country, benefiting more than 8,000 people. And these are just like your APPG, except there is a very isolated case as far as the IIUM. If you can bring this into the APPG punya model, you'll be happy. Right? So the community where we engage with the grassroots and sustainable development within the context of Sejahtera, and hopefully this will be the next phase forward, inshallah. So I think I will stop there. By the way, if you are still not clear, we have now created a Wikipedia on what Sejahtera is all about, so that you don't sort of get confused with other people's Sejahtera. They used to say sekolahku sejahtera. It's not sekolahku sejahtera, aku sejahtera. Yeah? We should be sejahtera first, and then the sekolah becomes sejahtera. If the sekolah sejahtera, you are still not sejahtera, then it is not sejahtera in that context. So go to Wikipedia Bahasa Malaysia, there's a whole lot of things you can add on things that you want to. So I will stop there. I hope I have met some of the expectations and how we can move sustainable development into another level. Not just the United Nations Eurocentric understanding what we have, what they've got, and missing many of the things that we've got in terms of our own culture and our own context. So terima kasih banyak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So to kickstart the dialogues for today, please allow me to introduce our panelists. We will have Mr. Surain Kanda, is a visionary social entrepreneur. He's also a business leader and a community activist. He served as the current president of the 44-year-old educational transformation NGO, Sri Murugan Center, managing director of Rain Ayo Sdn Bhd, and chairman of Pertubuhan Kemajuan Sosial Malaysia, with a strong commitment to community empowerment and sustainable social development. Following him is Ms. Ho Wan Chin. She is a HR practitioner by profession and a faith-based NGO volunteer, contributing her time and expertise voluntarily to the society. She has served as a commission with Suci Foundation for over a decade, and he has inspired and impacted 80,000 entrepreneurs and students. That is so different. I'm sorry. Let's forget about that. We have Mrs. Jasmine, who is a Christian social and community work practitioner, trainer, and action researcher with nearly 40 years of experience, both with government, NGOs, and religious groups. So Mrs. Jasmine currently working with the urban poor community residing in PPR flats in and around Batu constituency. She is the current honorary president of the Ants Cottage Board. Ants Cottage Board is a residential center for abused women, single mothers, and their children. She worships in St. James Church in KL. Finally, we have Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Khairul, who is from the Department of Usul and Dakwah, Academy of Islamic Studies. His research interests encompass a wide range of areas, including contemporary Islamic thoughts, Islamic theological studies, comparative religion, and the intersection of Islam and terrorism. So thank you, all the panelists. Welcome. So perhaps we can start with Mr. Surain to give a little bit of a background of your good work, and also how is it that your activities, programs, or your aspiration can be intertwined with SDGs.
This is a verse from Mandiram, quote from Hinduism, that loosely interpreted as God is everywhere. I surrender to God. God lives in me, and when God is in me, I'm enlightened and I will achieve success. If you ask me about SDG, about what we do, I think the biggest success of SDG is actually religion, because they survived, the entity of religion survived many thousand years. If it did not have sustainability, development goals embedded in religion, religion would not have succeeded. And therefore, anyone using the spiritual element of religion can succeed. We in Sri Murugan Center, for the last 44 years, have used the essence of religion to succeed in education. And our mantra that we use, education through discipline, discipline through religion. And what we do in Sri Murugan Center, being a Hindu faith organization, we take spirituality in a different context to enable the best in a student. Because in Hinduism, we believe that God resides in you. So if you empower yourself, you believe in God, you will succeed. And that formula has worked very well for us in the last 44 years. And coming back to SDG, all the 17 SDGs are actually components of a faith or religion. You technically do not, or you can't separate religions or religious values with what is already there. Some may say that you need a 18th SDG to bring in religion or faith. That's again very subjective. As we go on, we will look into whether there should be one very specific SDG on faith or religion.
Thank you, Mr. Surain. I think that's a very timely and also very fitting opening for our dialogue today. You have a very clear sense of whether we should or have we already must we have another SDG 18 that really talking about faith in the terms of sustainable development. Something that I think Sri Zul has also made his case during the keynotes. Perhaps while we are putting that in the context, or rather at the back of our mind, we can also hear from Tzu Chi, which is, I believe, it's an international movement that is currently going on, that with the charities, with the work that they are currently doing, and it's so wide ranging. So at the same time, we can also see the sustainabilities of this movement and also the activities. And I'll pass the mic to Ms. Ho to maybe introduce us about the Tzu Chi work. How is it that really engage with the sustainable development goals efforts? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Su. Very good morning, distinguished guests, fellow panelists, and friends. First of all, truly humbling to be part of this dialogue here. And I wanted to thank the organizers for organizing this, and also to all of you present here to support this topic. So as Dr. Su suggested, to answer that question, I will probably attempt to introduce what Tzu Chi is. So let's start with the name itself, Tzu Chi. Yeah, so Tzu actually stands for compassion, and Chi stands for relief. So when you put them together, it simply means providing relief with compassion. Yeah, and it is this very spirit that governs our actions as we go about with quite a fair bit of work that we do around the world. So allow me to just use a few slides to go deeper. Yeah. So what you can see here, as Dr. Su mentioned, we are a global NGO, and we have footprints in different parts of the world. From providing long-term shelters to building schools, providing education, as well as healthcare services. I think numbers aside, what we like to highlight is what you see today is actually made possible by selfless contribution from our very own donors and also volunteers. If I can have the next one. So despite that we are today a global NGO, and we actually turned 60 this year, Tzu Chi actually has a very, very humble beginning. We started off with 5 housewives, and these 5 housewives, what they all decided to do was they are determined to put aside 50 cents of their daily expenses so that they can deposit it into a bamboo bank, and the only purpose is so that this savings will actually be able to save and help people and save people. So this era of bamboo bank continues on until today. So if you look at this humble beginning and the concept behind it, the idea is very, very simple. When giving becomes natural and when givings become without burden, then anyone can just give. And all this sikit then becomes our bouquet, allowing us to sustain our work today. I have the next one, thank you. Yeah. So in summary, Tzu Chi volunteers, we are in 4 different missions. So I'm gonna just touch briefly on each of the mission. The very first one is of course charity mission, which anchors on poverty. But the principle behind that is we educate the rich so that to relieve the suffering of the poor. Yeah. And it's also this mission here that we instill the teaching of there are 2 things in life that cannot wait. First one, observing filial piety, and second, doing charity. And I move on to the next mission. The medical mission, our medical volunteers, they carry the mission of not just treating the diseases or the patients, but they safeguard the love and the health of the patient as well as their family members. And I think I'd like to share a fun fact here. When you see that Tzu Chi today exists in 4 missions, all the 4 missions doesn't exist in one go. They actually emerge. The mission emerged one after another. So the sequence of order is, of course, we started off as charity, and medical mission actually got pulled in by charity mission. Why? Because our founder, Master Chen Yen, she has one realization when she started embarking into the charity mission, and that is poverty and sickness, unfortunately, often come in pair. Yeah, and it's also because of this, for most of the work that we engage in, we bundle in charity and medical in our charitable work. I'll move on quickly to the next mission, education mission. Tzu Chi aims to deliver holistic education, and that's really much about character building, and we anchor on preservation of virtues and also propriety. Finally, Tzu Chi's 4th mission, which is humanistic culture, it is about these 3 keywords here. It's about people, human, acting with truth, living with virtues, and creating beauty in the world, and that will be done through volunteers, compassionate and mindful deeds. Yep. So that's a summary of the 4 missions. To anchor deeper into the question of how does religion help with SDGs, or in our case here doing charitable work, I'd like to just go to the next slides on our charity mission per se. Yeah. So we spoke of, when we think of our charity mission, what we really aim to do is to turn around. What do we turn around? We turn around suffering. Yeah? And it's through mindset like giving is not the privilege of the rich, but it is the privilege of all the sincere ones. We work on turning receivers into givers. So it can be that 50 cents that you dump into your bamboo bag with the intention to help others, or it can be becoming a volunteer yourself. So on this slide here, we showcase a few of our stories where someone who was a receiver can become a giver eventually, and that's what we like to repeat one after another in every single cases that we touch. Now, what about our givers? What is it that we are trying to turn around? To our givers, i.e. our volunteers, we carry the responsibility of when others are suffering, I feel the pain. And it's through such empathy that we reach out to the suffering ones with love and care with no conditions. So here we try to turn around volunteers from one individual into infinity. Okay, so I think I have one last slide on this topic. Now, all Tzu Chi volunteers have a shared aspiration, and this aspiration are the 3 words there. They are the very same aspiration as our Master Chen Yen. And there's actually a logical flow to these 3 aspirations. May all hearts be purified. We aim to start with ourselves, to purify our own mind. And when all minds are purified, we believe that the society that we live in will be at peace, in harmony. And when all societies like that coexist, our world will then be a world free of disasters. So as lofty as this aspiration may sound, that we wish for a world that is free of disaster, we are very clear with our starting point, and that is with ourselves. So when we nurture compassion in our hearts and actions, SDGs unfold naturally, just like blossoms on the path of a mindful cultivation.
Thank you, Ms. Ho. I believe Ms. Ho made a very important point. The receiver ultimately can be a giver. That is already a sustainability in terms of the efforts. It also, at the same time, it actually reflects the fact that when the poverty or the poor, they are not always the receiver. If we empower them enough, they can actually also contribute as a giver. So whenever we talk about sustainable development goals, we always see it as a global agenda, something that is always high above. But I think with Tzu Chi and also with Mr. Surain's presentation just now, it's also show that there's actually a grassroots mobility that's on the ground, and the religious faith-based organization actually play a very important role in terms of mobilizing the grassroots, regardless of what are their socio-economic conditions. So, but another exciting panelist that we have is Mrs. Jasmine. Mrs. Jasmine actually shared with me a list of amazing programs that she is currently involved with. I'll reserve that for Mrs. Jasmine to introduce the programs and also initiatives herself. Yes, Mrs. Jasmine, please.
Thank you, Chair. And very good morning to all of you, even though it's a very cold morning inside here. Let's warm up. Okay, as I'm introduced, I'm Jasmine Adaickalam. Let me start with myself, a short story of how I ended up to be a social worker or working in this kind of communities and things like that. I was never trained to be a social worker. I say this to encourage everyone, whoever you are, you can play a part in the community and in the society at large. That is the first conviction I heard it. And one more truth I have to say here, that I'm not from Malaysia. I came from, exported from India. Okay, so when I came here, I had a lot of questions. Why am I here? What is my role here? How am I going to survive in the first place? Because I myself went through a lot of experiences, antisocial kind of experiences at home and things like that. But this is where my faith built me. This is where, when I started reading the word, and that is where the conviction came in. So the first thing I learned is no charity but restoring dignity. Because everyone here, as I was going around through churches, through organizations and so on, I could see the charity mindset. That is, we give them some rice, we give them some provisions, we provide them some money. Okay, my conscience is, the spiritual conscience is clear. So this is where, when I started reading, so this is, I want to say it again and again, it's a faith that helped me to understand it is not charity but restoring dignity. God Almighty wants everybody to be in a dignified position rather than in the receiving position. As such, we started some work in the central area, then it spread to Batu constituency area, but now there are people coming from all over. Nearly 120 over families are coming in. So we don't talk about religion there at all. We talk about how can we build them up and how can they build themselves up. So much so that, as the previous panelists mentioned, here there are, after 10 years of serving them, after 10 years of working with them, those people have become our community links. Now it is not that we go directly, I do go, our team does go to see them, to meet them, and to talk to them, to talk to their children, and when there's an issue and all that, we do that. But there are 10 of them who have become our community links. So every time we have got something of a program to offer, or a dialogue session, or a training session, they are the ones now who are going forward to bring the people in. That's how they have grown up. this is the exciting story. So first and foremost, I would like to challenge everyone, don't look at the way of working with the community. If we want to be sustainable in our development, we need to build them up. So this is the one area of work we are doing, education, training, and how to bring them. Most of them are not very well educated. Some of them are, they have never even gone to school. That is the kind of people. But we are working, it is workable and so on. This is one experience. And the second one is, we do work with the community, Warang Asli community, a semi-community as well. And this is a very small village we took on, this to about 14 years ago. The 14 years ago when I went there to the community, they never used to look at my face also. They never used to look at my face when I'm talking about one person called Zul. Hi Zul, say hey, he will do that. But today, after all the 14 years, and he comes, the minute he sees me, Ibu Jasmine is here, Ibu Ini is there, Ibu Itu is here, and he will come and hug and he will say hello. That's the kind of growth and development that has taken place. And the beautiful story is, sometimes we used to get very depressed and we used to feel very dejected. Nothing is not moving. After all these years, the very first FPM leaver has come out of the community. So those are things, when we concentrate on building their dignity, things will start change. Another, now recently, I'm also working with Cottage, which is a home for abused women and their children, or single mothers and their children, to give them a kind of hope in their thing. Hand-holding process. Because this is one thing also I see as a social worker, when I go around, this hand-holding process is missing in many areas. Even when it comes to government policies and so on, the hand-holding process. For example, this is my bone of contention all the time. When people are moved from one area to another area, they are not given the feedback, they are not given a kind of training to expect what in the new area and so on. So here, this is what in all these three areas, what we are doing is the hand-holding process. Yes, you can do well. Okay, we will walk alongside with you, not hold you, carry you through, walk alongside with you. So in Cottage again, we are doing the same thing for these abused women. So it is a kind of temporary shelter for a period of time they are there. We do help them in training them up or to build their confidence level emotionally, socially, spiritually, and also to make decision volitionally, all areas. And we prepare them, and then they face the world with their own children. Sometimes they go back, but most of the time they are with their children and they are building their lives. This is in short about my story of the past 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jasmine. Again, it is amazing the work that you are doing. Now I will quickly move to Dr. Khairul. Perhaps you can also share a little bit from your perspectives. How is it that the faith and the SDG are closely intertwined? Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Assalamualaikum and very good cold morning here, despite hot outside. My name is Naim and I'm from Department of Usuluddin and Dakwah Academy of Islamic Studies, University Malaya. And we go straight to the question from Doctor about the contribution of religions to SDG. I think there is three main contributions of religion, including Islam, Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism, to the Sustainable Development Goals. The first one is in the context of sustainable development. How to shape the values, how to shape our own responsibilities towards others. That is not just induced in our education, but it's the command from God. We can see it in all of the holy texts that discuss about the responsibility of every person and therefore embed the ethical grounding. We, of course, in the context of Islam, as the trustee of the earth, we name as a Khalifah, and how the values as a Khalifah can have responsible towards others. The second one is grassroots engagement. We name in Malay as Aka Umbi. Aka meaning root and Umbi. Grassroots engagement gets embedded in communities where help is must need. I'm also not just a lecturer in Academy of Islamic Studies, I'm also a teacher at our surau and masjid at Sri Kembangan. And I'm asked Imam there about how they know about the people around. Yes, they know a lot more than the chairman of People's Association there. Because if any person need help, they will go first to the mosque. This is for the Muslims. And also for the non-Muslims. Yesterday they said, he said that he made the new single mother. The new single mother that lived in the neighborhood of the mosque that needed help. So this is how the religious institution can have a responsibility to engage in the grassroots level. And the last one, the third one is sustainability of values. With passing our ethical responsibility across generation. This is not just a one-off charity activities, but we must pass this responsibility, this education, not just for us, but for our sons, our daughter, our grandchild, and so on. And therefore, this is the three main contribution of religion to sustainable development goals. So this is my brief explanation for that question.
Thank you, Dr. Khairul. I think as we have heard from other panelists, we can see again how is it that the religious leaders or the faith-based organizations mobilizing the grassroots and also the social changes that is happening at the moment. So perhaps we can actually move on to another very critical questions that we can ask about this is how is it that we can ensure that whatever it is that we're currently working on fulfill the principle of the SDG of leaving no one behind. Maybe from your perspective, we can actually look at it from a different side of the coin is that often what would be the challenge in terms of executing the programs or the initiatives, or how is it that we can be more inclusive, the challenges of being more inclusive to have other communities that come on board with the initiatives. Yes, Mr. Surain.
Can I also just continue a little bit of what I
Sure.
Again, thank you, Dr. Su. Fantastic presentations by everyone in terms of community engagement. While I said just now, Sri Murugan Center, we're 44 years and we use religion as our fundamental base. And where do we extract those values? Go back into what I call 3,500 years ago, our Vedas. We have got, in Hinduism, we have got the 4 Vedas. Take from the Rig Veda. If you see the essence of wisdom and knowledge is taken from the Rig Veda. If you take the Yajur Veda, action, discipline. Sama Veda, harmony, expression. Other Veda, life and well-being. In bottom, Hinduism says way of life. And way of life is living in harmony with the nature and people. Like what Tan Sri said just now, humanizing, being human in our education. And the tool that we use when our founders started Sri Murugan Center in 1982, fundamentally we work with communities that are underprivileged and poor. And why are they poor? Because they don't have enough what we call empowerment or education. So the tool that we gave them was education back. And we use Sri Murugan Center as a deity, and the symbol used is a spear. If you see a spear, you will have its tip being very sharp. And we say the mind needs to be very sharp. And if you see the center part, it's broad, right? Knowledge must be broad, all right? And you'll see the long spear, it's deeply rooted down to give you a deeply rooted wisdom that can take you up high. And that is the spear we use. And that formula, I will not go through very much detail because of time constraint. 6 steps. Next slide. We have taken people from the rubber estates, and today Sri Murugan Center has produced graduates who are in 33 different countries globally, from the estates to 33 different countries. Next. Challenge is poverty. And today, Dr. Su, you will still be, I'm sure you will see, we still have got hardcore poor, and sometimes that's why I may dispute certain data that come out that you don't see poverty. I still got within 20 minutes drive from where we're sitting here, hardcore poverty, which I'll show you later. And how do you break that? We want to say that all of us must come together, bringing the essence of religion, bringing the essence of faith, because everyone says if a community is not just poor, but it's hardcore poor without decent basic amenities and things to live, we technically have failed. So that's why we call it SDG. Help these people to come up. We believe if you give them education, they will come out from that cycle. Next. Students come to us every week. We run classes. Today we run in 127 different localities from north to south of Malaysia. Every weekend, volunteers of Sri Murugan Center will meet students like this. They will come. The first thing we start with them is a prayer called Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra is taken from the ancient Vedic script, basically telling that I have the power in me. God give me power to realize the power within me, and they chant that. And religion, we can divide into two, what I call. One side is the spirituality of it, another one is the ritualistic part of it. If you take the ritualistic part, it's something, what you do, spiritual is what you gain and what you give back. Students go through this. Next. Just not enough of hard skills, you need to give students soft skills to survive in today's world, and that's what we continuously provide Sri Murugan Center students. Next, very quite fast. This is the type of students that come to us depending on what we do. We have got another mantra that we do. We call the student is the most important element in our organization, but we bring in the Shakti, the parents, Sri Murugan Center. If you got this tri-mantra, the student, the family, Sri Murugan Center as an organization, as a conduit, you will succeed. Next. Growing global is our target. Tying up with stakeholders. We have got numerous stakeholders that come in support to ensure that our students are not left behind. Next. This is what prayer. When you come to Sri Murugan Center, you'll see thousands of people sitting in silence without we need to tell them, be quiet, pay attention, because we treat them with lots of love. Give them love, they reciprocate, and that is our formula of success. Next. And this is what I said 20 minutes from here. You'll see a family that is living in dire poverty. And the sad part is I'm not into coming, we cannot do everything. But whenever there's a family, the child is not going to school because of poverty, Sri Murugan Center volunteers will go forward to help them. Another family, just 10 minutes from here, Pipian Lembah Pantai, which we went last week. Poverty also. I don't want to go there. I just say, basically all this can help if we all come together, saving these families. Next, final one. Stakeholder engagement is important. People like the organizations and also the government. If all of us work together, not working in silo, but working together, interfaith, and also everyone, we can have better results. And that's what we hope Sri Murugan Center can bring into the discussion here today. And finally, next. Sustainability. As I said, we are 44 years, and today we have produced about 60,000 graduates from the B40 community. I'm one of them. I was a student that my founder picked when I was in a very low in life. If not for the organization and my founder, Tan Sri Tambi Raja, I may not be sitting in front here doing things that I'm proud of. And people like what I see here, Satya Balan is a banker, our former student in 1992, married also a former student of Sri Murugan Center. Kavita was a lawyer, and today, because they believe in us, they send their children to Sri Murugan Center, and that will continue. With the support of everybody, we can make this place a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Surain. I think although I do give them a series of questions, but I believe that all the panelists actually cover half or if not most of it. But then coming back to my question itself, I believe that all these amazing work programs and initiatives, you do encounter challenges. Perhaps maybe you can actually enlighten us what kind of challenges that you may often encounter that to ensure that whatever programs or initiatives that you have, you won't leave anybody behind. Or do you, I'm just giving like a very mainstream perception to thinking that sometimes, certain religion, you will be thinking that they are only benefiting a certain religion, the believers. If you're not into this religion, you may not be able to, you're not included in these kind of programs and initiatives. But I believe that may not be true. Perhaps the panelists can actually enlighten us. Maybe we start with you, Ms. Mohd.
Sure, thank you, Dr. Su. Let me try to address the question on how no one is left behind. Yeah? In Tzu Chi, I think I'll try to attempt to answer this question by two ways. First of all, the recipient of the Tzu Chi services, we believe in great love. Why? And great love simply means if what we have to offer is love, and we know that love can come in abundance, then why do we want to limit it to the opposite of great love, which is small love? What does small love mean? Small love means people that I know, people that I like. Yeah. So if love is abundant, then we believe in great love that it can reach out to just about anyone at all. However, so that's why for Tzu Chi, our work is extended to just about anyone, regardless of their race, religion, or even nationality. Now, but we live in a practical world, yeah, and in a practical world, when people are in need of help, very often they come in different breadth and different depth. So we got to decide that when you reach out, do you provide them with the breadth of the services or the in-depth services to solve, to uproot their issues altogether? So when we face dilemma like that we reach out to a certain sector or whatnot to decide how to help them with that. Very often, our answer to that is we are very diligent. Tzu Chi volunteers perform a lot of due processes before we reach out. I'll quote a few examples. We have charity cases. For every single charity cases that we have, there is always a pre-assessment. Yeah, so fellow volunteers will go in, perform some assessment, fill out some forms, come back for committee meetings, and then discuss that yes, this is a genuine, legit case, and let's open the case. Now, once the case is open, they are not perpetually with us. We run a half-yearly review because, if you recall, our intention was to turn them around. So we are hoping that in a blocks of 6 months, we can turn around. So for that, that's how we manage our cases. Now, of late, there has also been quite a fair bit of disasters issues. So when Tzu Chi enter into a disasters review work, likewise, we will have pre-assessment work. Tzu Chi volunteers are not rescue workers, so we do not go in to do rescue work. But the moment it's suitable and safe enough for a volunteer to step in, the first work is again pre-assessment work. Now, what do we assess in a disasters area? We assess the severity. If there are two zones that are that are hit by the disasters, we will determine the worst hit. And that is the worst hit that we go in, and we do our assessment to see what they need and so on and so forth. So I think that's one side of the story, that when we go great love, we face with the dilemma of determining the breadth and the width, and then we do so with an assessment. So in short, our great love may not know any borders. We do not differentiate by anything, but we are governed by structures and also processes. Now, the other side of leaving no one behind is our own volunteers. So I think I would like to illustrate this by this question here. And this is a conversation between Master Chen Yan and one of her followers. So the conversation goes this way. Imagine if you are in a tug of war, and the tug of war is one side is evil and one side is goodness. Which side will win? Who will win? And I like to improvise that question and throw it out here. We are all right here in Malaysia, and imagine if a tug of war now happens right here in Malaysia. One side is good side, and the other side is the evil side. Who will win? Which side will win? Anyone? Or even our fellow panelists? Every time when we ask this question, we get very interesting questions. But anyone who wishes to attempt some,
Anyone?
Good side.
Good side? Thank you, I like that. We always like that answer. But that conversation, so let me go back to the conversation between Master Chanyan and the follower. The answer from Master Chanyan is the side that has got more people will win. And that's the very reason why when Tzu Chi goes out to the community, we leave no one behind. We try to talk everyone into, let's join us and do good side. So one day, should a tug of war happens in wherever we live, we have more people on the good side. So that's my take on how we leave no one behind.
Thank you, Ms. Mohd. So maybe perhaps I can go across to Dr. Khairul. Maybe you also have some points that you would like to share.
Okay, when we discuss about how faith-based initiative inclusive and truly leaving no one behind, we know in Islam there is what we name it as mukallaf, responsible, which is the articulation is never detached from responsibility from the God. And when we discuss about what the meaning of responsibility, it is an accountable or to blame for something. Therefore, we as humankind in the context of Islam, we see all of human in the context of human dignity. This is what our Prime Minister, PMX, always said about the karamah insaniyah. If you go to the slide, this is what the meaning of karamah insaniyah, which means the human dignity. And when we discuss about dignity, what is dignity? This is the state or quality of being worth of honor and respect. And therefore, in the context of social responsibility, it is not just morally right, but it's commanded by God and embedded within religious duty. And this is our perspective. And therefore, when we discuss about poverty, marginalized community, it is not understood merely just as an economic issue, not just on the context of policies, framework, and so on, but that in the context and question of human dignity, not just on the process, but on the context of the object, which is human dignity. Therefore, there is the institutionalized system like zakat, which is 2.5% compulsory redistribution of wealth that need to be given to the zakat institution. And there, in the context of our perspective, the wealth and our assets is just it belongs to God, and human beings are merely trustees, just as trustees, which has been given a power from God in trust with obligation. So we need to share, not just to monopolize the assets and the money we have. And therefore, when we discuss about the poor, those burdened by debt, individuals struggling to regain economic stability, this is the marginalized people that need to have in the context of human dignity. And in a modern context, we just not give a one-off solution, but need a revolutionized practice like education sponsorship. And the second one is like vocational training and small business support. And therefore, like I've said before, when we discuss about how the faith-based initiative leaving no one behind, we start with recognize that every human beings, Muslims, Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, and so on, no matter their social status, no matter their wealth or religion, this is the core, which is the dignity, the humankind dignity. And we know that in the Quran, there are studies list that there are 40 to 47 verses that discuss about the poor, about the needy, about the material vulnerability. And we know that the Prophet Muhammad is also often since 2 or 3 years old, his mother passed away. Therefore, there are the words often in the Quran have been stated 20 to 23 times in the Quran. Al-Miskin, the poor, the needy appeared about 25 times, which means in Islam there is importance point to not look just on the context of Muslim, but in the whole on the context of human dignity. Therefore, when we discuss about on the context of community, Islam provides multiple mechanisms, not just on zakat, on social care, because zakat is on a specific legal rules or hukum, in Islamic ethical mandates helping anyone in need, but there is also another mechanism like sedekah, which means a voluntary charity that's open to all in need. And the second one is wakaf, endowment, like what Tan Sri said before in his keynotes about the endowments, like the development of hospitals for the patients of all religion, all race, all culture, schools, orphanage, and also the shelter. And also we have what we call it as a Baitul Mal, the public treasury, which means the management to manage a public revenues like tax, lands that are responsible for social welfare and a public service. So Baitul Mal, in the context of nature, institutionalized by the government state, that's responsible not just for social care, but also for ensure the poor people, for the single mother, and in the context of Baitul Mal, didn't just look to the religious identity, but on the context, look to the human dignity. This is how faith-based initiative inclusive. Yeah, that's what.
Thank you, Khairul. Yes, this is Jasmine.
Thank you. Our chairperson first asked about the difficulties and so on. So when I come about the Christian faith, okay, there are so many things very clear in the Christian faith, but unfortunately, the Christians do not follow it, or sometimes they themselves don't understand it. That's the thing. That's my confession to the forum here. The thing is, first of all, if we look at it, the great commandment, that is love one another as you love yourself. But when it comes to it, our love, how much of our love is there? I will never be able to give the same thing which I'm giving to my own daughter to somebody else's child. So this kind of dichotomy is there. The dichotomizing religion and faith is a difficulty, and that puts a lot of obstacles in the community. This is one thing I want to say that. Secondly, Bible is also very, very clear about justice, doing justice to the poor. How can we do and all that? But when it comes to court cases, or when it comes to some of the other kinds of incidences and so on, where do we side? So this is again a very big question which is there. Another thing is Jesus' manifesto itself is very clear that our role is in the community. Our role is a very prophetic role of reaching out to the poor, the needy, the single mothers, the widows, and the children. Nobody can deny this fact. No Christian can deny this fact. But unfortunately, all of us are very, very insular in our thinking, instead of coming out to be very inclusive. Though the word inclusive has become a real jargon, but I would ask myself whether I'm being inclusive or insular in my thinking. This is one great question every day I pose to myself in the first place. When I'm going out to the community, am I able to love them as I'm loving my own family, myself, and so on? These are some of the difficulties. Okay, when I'm coming to the community, it is gaining their trust and things like that. This is also real difficulty. People have been disappointed, cheated for a long time, especially when they moved from the estates to the community, in urban poor settlements and so on. There was no hand-holding process. They were just left alone. So now we are doing the repair work rather than the real work. That's how I would say that. That's one of the things I have to say that. The community solidarity, there is no real community solidarity in urban poor communities. I mean, if you go to rural communities, you can see certain amount of community solidarity, especially in the Orang Asli community and so on. And even in our own, the small home, residential center, the women who come, they come with different needs. They themselves, even though the common problem exists of abuse and neglect and so on, but when they want to react or respond to the situation, they are very, very different. So that's another thing. Another thing is, in our situation, we deal with a lot of uneducated people, not much education. They can speak only Tamil, especially the Indians whom we are dealing with. Even till today, 2026, even till today, most of them can only speak in Tamil, but not in the national language and so on. There is a tremendous fear to get into the government system. We teach them how to plug in, Dr. Dennison's favorite word, plug in, into government initiatives and things like that. But they don't know. This is where I think religion or the faith-based initiatives must do the hand-holding process of teaching them how to do and so on. And the social, it is a kind of, many times it is put as just a social responsibility, but if we look at it as spirituality, it can bring forth more fruits. This is my conviction. Because when we are talking about social responsibility, we are dichotomizing. Okay, this is only social. Okay, spiritual is something else. But I don't think as a Christian I should dichotomize that way. Once a Christian, I'm always a Christian. Whether I'm at home, whether I'm in the community, whether I'm in the workplace, or whether I'm anywhere, I'm still a Christian. Whether I'm able to portray the love of God to everyone, no matter who they are, which religion they come from, which race they come from, which ethnic group they come from. This is a real danger and real difficulty we face there. And another thing from the community is their low confidence level. I'm talking about the B, not even the B40, I'm only talking about the B20 or B10. If we go through, because many of them have not seen even the 4,000 mark anywhere, even though they are working, 3 of them working, 2 of them working, they don't see that. So the B40 is a far cry. So this is where the difficulty will be, their low confidence, and the thing is, compassion is a tough feeling. This is another thing we tend to forget. Compassion is not a wishy-washy kind of thing. I'm so sorry, I'll do that. No, it is also action-oriented. How do we bring them out of it? This is another yet difficulty we are facing. Because in our understanding, that is why initially I said, no charity restoring dignity. I mean, my conviction is faith-based conviction, it may be. It is how long you are going to hold their hand and give them and give them and give them. We will never ever able to bring them up to come to the point of saying that I don't need it anymore. Let me do something to the community. So these are some of the potential difficulties I face in the community, especially working with the people and working with the people of my own faith-based organizations. How do we interpret the faith scriptures to action? Well, many a time the faith scriptures are not action-oriented. They are not interpreted to be action-oriented, but to take it as God's blessing to me and to me and to me. I feel that needs to really change. Voluntarism in Malaysia. This is I will say this as a last. A lot of things are there, but I'm not going to go through it. Voluntarism. Voluntarism is treated to be like one-off kind of thing. But in this kind of field, especially when we are dealing with poverty eradication, voluntarism cannot be done that. It has to be long-lasting. It is not, when do I have the time, I come. Always, when do you need me, I come. Whether we can move on to that kind of channel, then I think we should be able to reach out to more of these people rather than just sitting in our own armchairs, sociological chairs and things like that, and then we won't be able to be very, very effective or efficient.
Thank you, Mrs. Jasmine, for such a very critical thoughts. We have a lot to unpack, but before we do, maybe I can move on to Mr. Surain first. After you make your statements, then we can actually open to the floor for any kind of questions or feedback. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it fast. What all of them said, all religion promotes compassion. And if you see the Hindu, when the Hindu goes to temple to pray, they put their hand together and pray like this. And when you see a Hindu greet another Hindu, they also do this. The reason why they do this is because they greet God like this, and they greet another person because we believe God resides in you. And that's where we say anukampa. Anukampa means compassion for all beings. And for some people, they even vegetarian, they feel that, even animals, you should be compassionate too. When you are compassionate to everyone, irrespective of creed, color, religion, then you actually reach God. God says, be compassionate to others. And one of the key words in Hinduism is seva. Seva is service. So you do service to human, service to human is service to God. So that's where we continue doing service. And we have got what we call Sangha. Sangha is living in harmony with everybody. So that's the things that we do in religion that we can bring into it. And just one challenge. Well, we have a big heart that we want to do as much as we can. Like in Sri Murugan Center, the limitation will be we take care of many of those who come to us. We can only take care of the little few that we can reach out. Given the chance, we would love to reach out to many people who cannot come to Sri Murugan Center. And that's one of the biggest challenges we feel in creating a holistic change. We still cannot go to everybody who needs this service or help. And that's what we hope to do more in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Surain. So maybe we can now open to the floor. If any one of you have any questions or any feedback to the panelists of what they think and their opinions. Yes. Sami, if you may please introduce yourself, where you're coming from, before you post your questions or your feedback, please. Thank you.
Respected panelists, dear presence, I am A.S.M. Shamim, a PhD candidate, Faculty of Language and Linguistics, University of Malaya, and I am from Bangladesh. I'm very glad and pleased with this type of seminars, and I have learned a lot from the respected panelists and from the keynote speakers as well. Since it's a faith-based dialogue towards the Sustainable Development Goals, my question is, the Sustainable Development Goals, there is 17 goals, mention 17 goals or determine 17 goals. Goal number 4 is quality education, 16 is peace, justice, and strong institution. And number 10 is reduced inequality, number 5 is gender inequality, number 13 is environmental stewardship, climate action. These all are connected to religions. And as far as I know, I come to know that all the religions, including Islam, Buddhist, Christianity, and Hinduism, they are doing their best to uphold this step to attain these sustainable goals. But the religious principles always, all religions, in all religions, we see that the principles and the policy, they are motivating us, or they are declaring this, that we should maintain this. But my question is, from our honorable respected panelists, we come to know that they have some initiatives, they have some organizations that bring the restoration of dignity, that brings the that bring the justice, they are not doing inequality. It is a very nice thing. But how can we extend these attempts, irrespective of religion, through the knowledge or education? Can we think about this, that we can spread the knowledge that all religions, all faith can uphold to remove the discrimination, to bring the justice, and to remove the poverty, to remove the calamities or the disputes that can bring up, that can build a peaceful nation, peaceful world, and pollution-free world, something like this. So I would like to ask the honorable panelist, could you please draw up education system or ecosystem educations that can connect with all faiths, and this education can be provided to different universities or schools, that integrated education systems based on the faiths of different religions, and that can motivate the students to bring a better world. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a very, very important question. It actually allows the panelists to freely give their suggestions. How is it that we can actually bridge the gap between religion and also academia? That would be one question. Do we have any other questions before I pass it to the panelists? Going once? Oh, yes. Ma'am, please. Please introduce yourself and then your question. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for a very insightful talk on the different religions and service. I'm YBhg from the Faculty of Education. I coordinate service learning, Sulam. I'm not sure if you all have heard about it. It's something that we started in 2019. It's top down. So just now when Tan Sri was mentioning about uni community and things like that, we've had that long ago. And the other thing is I'm in moral education for 38 years. So actually there's a lot of misunderstanding about moral education because we link the three domains, and that's what I tell all moral education teachers, is the reasoning, the emotion and the action. When these three gets together is moral education. But it has been misunderstood, preparing for exam. But if you don't have the exam, what will happen to civics education will happen to moral education. Completely gone. Because what is important is STEM. Okay? So my question to you all, do you all know what's happening in the education system? Because I come from the education background. Of course, through Murugan, you're preparing people for life, preparing them to go up mobility. But do you all understand what's going on and who is the person who is giving you all information? Are you all reaching out to universities? Because we and you all seem to be so far away. When I ask my students, when they go for service learning, do you know Zichi, do you know Cottage? They don't know. They just go out to people who are online because they have to do the service learning. So how are we going to bridge all these together so that we have, there's a new education policy from 2027. It started in preschool now. So when I ask policymakers, what is the final thing that you want? Of course, Zul will talk about Sejatra, somebody will talk about something. So how are we going to bridge all these together? That's my biggest fear for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So perhaps I can, because both of the questions seems to be similar, unless anybody else have a similar questions, otherwise maybe we allow the panelists to make their case. All right. So any one of you would like to start first? If not, I'll go to Dr. Khairul as the academician.
The question is about the engagement between the...
Yeah, with the educations and also the religion, how do we bridge the gaps, essentially?
So this is what we call as empowerment when we discuss about the partnership between the faith-based incentive, faith-based perspective to achieving a sustainable development goal. When we want to sustain something, the basic one must be education. And therefore, when we discuss about responsibility to others, we must make a distinguish. We must distinguish two types. One is relief, and the second is empowerment. When we said about relief, it is just an emergency assistance. It is for survival, and that's for crisis when there's a big flood and so on. But the second one is more important. This is what we mean empowerment through education, which is this is for a long-term self-reliance. So therefore, there's a responsibility in the context of education, in the secondary school and in the university, that make this empowerment fulfilled. And therefore we know that there is one hadith, in Islamic terminology, one sunnah from the Prophet. A man once asked the Prophet Muhammad for help, and instead of giving repeated handouts, the Prophet asked what he owned and helped him sell a simple item and provide him with tools to earn a living. This is the simple meaning, what we call as empowerment. So the Prophet then said that the begging, that earning through one's own effort is better than continuous begging. And the key message here is assistance should, especially in education, should restore dignity and capability, not just create a dependence of others. And that's my question for the first question.
So that is a very good laying the foundation for the second one. How do you actively bridging that gap between the religion and also the practical, pragmatic and very real work that you're working on the ground as we speak? So how does education and also this grounded work be able to bridge effectively with each other?
Education can be also put into two different areas, even though education is education. One is the formal, the other one is informal. In the community where I'm working with, in my own area, the environment is mostly informal education, because they need the informal education, and at the same time they don't have the information with them. So this is where, as a group of people, we are encouraging them, we are giving them the information, and we are directing them, we are motivating them. Sometimes it has happened, okay, the Human Resource Ministry has got all kinds of trainings and so on. So when we go door to door and we tell them about all the opportunities, we do bring officers or people from the Human Resource Ministry, and we go and reach out to the community, and they will say yes. Initially there will be at least 20-30 of them will say yes, and then we give them the form, and when they have to fill the form or do the needfuls and everything, there will be only about 10 will come in. And towards the end, actually they will be called for the appointment for the kind of initiation into the whole thing and all that. There will be only 2 or 3 would have gone. So this is the kind of thing. So breaking that barrier itself is a great challenge and hurdle for us. This is one thing, because most of them are in that category, but at the same time we do encourage them by providing them the information and so on. And at the same time, some of the Christian groups are working alongside with even university students and also others in their own church communities, in their own Christian communities and so on. These are the ways. Initially, I mean, when we look at many years ago or decades ago or centuries ago, Christians had a strong role in playing in the education field. But now I really question whether it is still the same or not. So in that, maybe, if my church members or my community members, if they hear me, they might really kill me. But my question, I'm just looking at myself and looking at the community, whether we are still that passionate about education or not. We can be passionate about our own children, but when it comes to the community children, how passionate are we? How committed are we? That's the question.
Thank you, Mrs. Jasmine. I think, and also one of the points I would like to also make is that UAC and APPGM-SDG would like to come up with the policy briefs, maybe out of these dialogues about the interfaith, about poverty, and also SDGs. So any kind of suggestions from the panelists will definitely be helpful. How is it that we'll be able to bridge the educations with the groundwork of this eradicating poverty? But now let's move to Mr. Surain, please.
Okay, since there was a question on SMC, I will take on SMC. SMC started by Dr. Tanvi Raja when he was a lecturer in the University of Malaya in 1982. Together with him, 42 undergraduates from University of Malaya started this organization. And ever since, our backbone has always been undergraduates in university. And today, I have close actively about 500 undergraduates throughout the country, predominantly from the public universities, helping our programs. And I have got about 30 odd students from MU now staying in SMC House. SMC Ashramam is walking distance from University of Malaya. So we have a lot of undergraduates working, and I would love to connect with you, sister, if there's any way we can do service with the undergraduates with programs, a lot of programs. We can see how it can help them in their studies as well. And coming back with education, we are very much into education. That's our only thing we do actually in depth. We work very closely with Kementerian Pelajaran, Kementerian Pendidikan. Even yesterday, we were in a program with the minister on understanding the master plan, the blueprint. They had this 2013, 2025. There's so many things there. If you just take what you told just now about STEM, in 2012, when they planned the 2013 blueprint, they envisaged STEM education to be at 60%, when we were at about 42%. If you see last year, we went down. All right, so let's not go into that part of it. And the new blueprint, there are a lot of good things, and let's not be negative. Sometimes I'm quite controversial about things, but I think let's give them a chance to show. But already, just after a day, you have to backtrack your diagnostic examination. Diagnostic assessment. So in Sri Murugan Center, we have started SMC YBhg. SMC YBhg is a diagnostic and psychometric analysis that we do to understand a child. We don't believe one size fits all. So we have got this program where we evaluate, but the evaluation is not to tell you're good, you're no good. We do not do that. Everybody is very good. So our SMC YBhg will actually come out with a 5 different category for us to understand the child and empower him more. And in today's education, no longer the time when we were there, it's only science, maths, BM, you must do all your hard skills. Today there are a lot of other programs. So in that sense, we can work with APPGM to see how can we bridge, link the most recent things that we can do with our children and community.
If I may, I think I hear the questions on how are we bringing back awareness and all this movement into schools, right? Maybe I'll share a little on what Sujit has been doing. Not much, but we are hoping it can make some difference. We have what we call humanistic culture subject, HMC in short. It's delivered into schools, it's delivered into ALCs for refugees, and it's also delivered into some of our weekend schools. What happens in those subjects is, during those subject time days, we will play out video footages. For example, just quoting an example, if our audience are primary 3 students, then the videos that we play are stateless children in Tawau, who couldn't even afford to go to school. Now that video clip is nothing more than just 3 minutes, because that's the longest time we can hold their attention anyway, right? So after 3 minutes, then we open up for some discussion. We will introduce to them a sense of empathy, that today you are here sitting in the school comfortably watching this, but there's those children there. What do you feel? What you can do, and so on and so forth. So those are typical content that we build for our HMC classes. Now, it's not every day that we have live events to talk about. So then, other than that, our main syllables are built on what we call 近世 aphorism, or it's also known as words of wisdom. So we will play out a words of wisdom. If our students target group are the secondary ones, we know that we are dealing a lot with mental well-being. So for example, one of the 近世 aphorism, word of wisdom that we played out will be, anger is but temporary insanity. Then we have everyone to contemplate on this word and start to share. When was the last time you gone insane and why is it so and so and so forth. So those are our regular content that we have words of wisdom to build into our syllabus, so that because if it's a subject, there has to be continuity. But on special occasions where there's live event, then we play talk some real, it can include the current war going on and so on and so forth. So that's how we bring some of this awareness and values into campuses and schools.
May I just add one? Sure. Years ago, a few years ago, when we had a session with the teachers, all disciplinary teachers or guru counseling, and even when they gathered together, when we posed a question, what is the motivation for you? These are all counseling and disciplinary teachers. What is your motivation to become a teacher? I lost my head at that time. Really, I was so mad and I was so sad and I couldn't sleep for weeks because the answers, most of them came out with the answers. This way we can get transferred wherever. When we get married, we can go alongside with our husbands. Secondly, there will be annual holidays and things like that, then we can spend some time with our children. So if that is the motivation for teachers to be there, I rest my case.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jasmine. Do we have any further questions? Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself and your question, please.
Hello, I am Dr. Chong from UPM, and I have actually 4 questions. But it could be something out of the context, but and it can be quite relevant as well. So question number 1 is that we are talking about sustainable development, and when we talk about this interfaith and how we relate interfaith with sustainable development, does it also mean that it is about how we can govern religious diversity in Malaysia? Okay, that's question number 1. Question number 2 is that if it is so how do we have to manage religious diversity with what kind of framework are we trying to use to govern the religious diversity? Are we trying to use the framework of religious syncretism, which is like we mix everything in one package, or there is other recommendable ways? Question number 3 is, do you think that performing arts like music or like sign language presentations like in Chiji most of the time, right? So do you think that performing arts like music can become the bridge for interfaith efforts in Malaysia? And question number 4 is, can interfaith effort become a potential soft power for us in Malaysia? Thank you.
Yes. One more question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Khairul, but I'm speaking on my personal. I'm not representing any organization. Assalamualaikum, peace be upon you. Salam sejahtera. We used the word sejahtera before. Now you rarely hear. And also salam madani. The reason I mentioned madani because I would like to discuss one of the values of the madani. It's called trust. Yeah, and it has 6 values, but one of it is trust. The other are sustainability, respect, innovation, and the rest. Script. If you look at the back of the American currency, the greenback, what does it say? in God we trust. It's very interesting. It's a currency of United States. And they say it serves as a constant reminder that the nation's political and economic fortunes were tied to its spiritual faith. Yeah? So the word trust is also used at the greenback, US dollar. But coming back to Malaysia, I think one of our current problems we have is what we call trust deficit. Sometimes children are not trusting their parents. We are not trusting our leaders. We are not trusting some institutions, including NGOs. We donate and then suddenly the money disappear and that sort of thing. So from the panelist viewpoint, how we could reduce this gap of this trust deficit among the society towards leaders, towards institutions, and among the community as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. I think that will be the last questions that we have for today. So anyone of the panelists would like to start first?
Maybe I'll just answer the first question. There's 4 panels here. About the question about how does interfaith mean? Does interfaith mean how we govern the religious diversity? In short, I can say that the interfaith is not the governance system itself, but it is really just a primary methodology, the methods or process used within a specific model to governing religious diversity. And when we discuss about what the meaning of governing religious diversity, there is many key tools or practice that can be employed within a particular context that favors to the, whether it is active pluralism, non-conflict, or so on. And whether it is implement within the governance model or the policy on in the interfaith practice. But I can conclude that there is the 3 or 2 or 4 models that we can discuss about what kind of governance that's better. The first one that's applied not in Malaysia, that we can call it as assimilationist, assimilation or secularist model. Which is religion is a private matter. There's no religious NGOs and no religious implementation in the policy, in the budget, and so on. So the public sphere shall be in this model is must be neutral, must be private, and therefore minimize the visible religious recognition, expression, and so on. The second one is a pluralist model, and in the context on this view, the diversity is looked as a public good. But when we discuss about implementation in Malaysia, which is I think better, which is a multicultural model. What do we mean by multicultural model? We focus on protecting our rights, Malay, Muslim rights, Hindus rights, Buddhist rights, based on constitutions, based on law, and not just protecting on the context of right of religions, but also on the context of identities, ethnic, and official recognition and recognition of communities. And it is possible, and it has been applied in Malaysia for 60 to 70 years. Yes, there is an issue, but we can solve it in dialogue and harmonies in that way. And the fourth way, is the conflict model, and I think it is not suitable to implement in Malaysia that views religious diversity as a social instability. Views that how the state control the religions and make a tool for superficial harmony So there is four, we can conclude about the four model, how to governs the diversity, what has been applied in Malaysia is best and better, like what we have lived now. So that's my answer.
Thank you, Dr.
Khairul. From my side, it's about the interfaith. We have talked. The question is about whether we can have a religious syncretism and all that kinds of things. The four different questions. I am not too sure whether we will agree to this religious syncretism, but at the same time, it is not the kind of no that we cannot come together on common grounds and we can work. This is one thing, because all faith-based initiatives have got some kind of common ground. Because all of us, we are sitting here, when we come to eradicating poverty, all of us will say yes. Our religion may different, our faith may different, the way we may look at it different, but when it comes to the operating world, I think we can work together. This is one thing we need to think about, I believe. As mature human beings, we should be able to come together, think together, plan together, and address the issue together. And when it comes to education, again, it's the same thing. Everywhere also, when you talk about education, when you talk about poverty, it's a human issue. It's not a religious issue. But as different faiths, we come together. This is my short point. And when we come together, the next answer will also be that there will be a trust relationship we can build. Unless and until I force my religiosity on somebody else, then it is no more a spirituality. It is religiosity, and it is just the different kind of activities of the religion. But it has got nothing to do with the principles or the core values of the religion, I believe.
I wanted to answer that question. So since Jasmine has answered that question, I concur with her. And I also agree that compassion, again, until a time when even until SDG includes faith as maybe the 18th, I don't see people coming together bringing faith into inter-religion sustainability as a development. So you need a top-down approach before getting the civic organizations doing it. So until then, maybe we'll still operate the way we are operating. But as what she says, because every religion professes good values, so it's already doing SDG even without the SDG label behind it. Coming back to Mr. Khairul yang berkata pasal trust tu, since human evolution, human never trust anybody. So memang susah kalau kita nak trust, and especially if you are in a social organisation yang collect fund, sama ada daripada donors, shareholder atau kerajaan terutamanya. And we have got this sad situation. If you collect money, especially if government gives you grant, you must be a bad person. Orang tak percaya bila duit itu diberikan pada siapa-siapa tu, because that is maybe through experience or it is something that people see. And sad what we see happening today in our country as well. Certain places that you cannot believe that it can happen. So answering that question, untuk pastikan kepercayaan itu, the trust is there. The only way is by showing results. I'll just give an example. I'm not just coming to SMC. I mean, Suchi, I know a lot of my friends who work with Suchi, who does fantastic work on weekends and things like that. Right? So there are hundreds of very, very good organizations. If you do a good job, people will support you. I'll just give you an example. Last week, we visited, as I told just now, a home in Bapantai, a single mother, 3 children. They stopped their 11-year-old daughter from school because of poverty. So when I went to the house, my intention was to get the girl back to the school. All right? But when we went to the house, oh my God, it was very bad. Very, very bad. But again, it's mindset, Dr. Su. Keeping a house clean does not require a lot of money. Okay, so there's a different story, but they needed immediate relief. Now, I cannot every time take out money from our pocket or get from our organization. So what we did was we went into a public and asked for, we wanted 1,000 ringgit to be collected in that day. So we just came out with a video and asked for people. We got 4,000 ringgit in a day where the money was directly given to them, right, to ensure that the bills were paid, groceries were bought, school fees, IC, all those kind of things. But the point here is that if we show results, I think Malaysians generally are good people who will come and support. I think there's no other way apart from showing results to win over trust.
Thank you. Thank you. To the first question on religious diversity, I think Tzu Chi's answer to that is we actually look out for what draws us together, what is similar between one to another. We are not so drawn to differences, so no, we don't have a framework to govern diversity or differences. But I'll try to go deeper into the third question on how performing arts, like the sign language in Tzu Chi, does it serve any purpose in bridging some of our values and so on? Definitely so. So for some of you who doesn't know what Tzu Chi's Buddhist teaching is based on, Tzu Chi is based on the Buddhist teaching of Lotus Sutra. So for some of you who are familiar with Sutra, you probably will also agree that Lotus Sutra is one of the more profound sutra. So to be able to just read it, comprehend it itself is already very hard. More so to have someone who wishes to interpret it and share with more. So what Tzu Chi does is we follow what Master Chen Yen guides us. That sutra are not meant for us to keep and store in your house. It's meant for you to walk on. By that it means exercise it, walk the talk. So how do we walk the talk in the teachings that's delivered in the form of a Lotus Sutra? We have again, a very clear structure. Usually, if we are aware that there's going to be a sign language performance scheduled, say, 9 months down the road, we will start the journey from month 1 onwards. Why do we do it so early? It starts with what we call group study. So all the content within the sutra are then translated into simple, easy to understand language. So whether you are a small kid or someone who has not been to a school or a professor, you could all understand that. So the 6 months will be all governed by what we call group study. It's a little bit like a book reading club. We come back once a month, you absorb the teachings in there. And then the next 3 months is synchronized movement. You gotta now that you embed the teaching, you feel the teaching, you gotta put in your sign language and start synchronizing your move. And then come month 9, collectively we go up stage and deliver. So that's how we walk the sutra. Now of course, when we do it at that level, we tend to attract first of all our own fellow volunteers. But between the volunteers, they will spread the word because they will say, come watch me on the stage. So on stage, you have our fellow volunteers who delivers the performance. Off stage, you have the contacts and audiences, so that's how we pull together. And I think it has worked very well for us. Right here in Malaysia itself, one of the bigger sessions that we have done was back in 2015, It took place in Bukit Jalil Stadium. And we managed to draw in more than 10,000 crowd. So that episode shows us that this is how you appeal to the masses. And some people even tell us that usually they will pay thousands to go for a Jackie Chong concert over there, but it takes them $0 to come by and watch a performance like that. So that's on the how performing arts has helped Tzu Chi and why are we so into delivering it through sign language and performances. We call them sutra adaptation performances. And to the question on trust, just sharing a little bit of what Tzu Chi does. Surain is right that Tzu Chi, we are constantly raising fund. And for handling that amount of fund, the burden is really there. So first of all, as Tzu Chi volunteers, we are all governed by precepts. In Buddhist terms, it's called precepts. In layman terms, it's none other than rules. So we are governed by certain rules that when we are handling funds like that, whether it's just that 10 ringgit from a fellow friend or that 1,000 from a businessman, is all governed by precepts. The second thing is we also have a principle of what we call specific funds for specific use. So if an acquaintance of mine happen to know that, hey, you're active in Tzu Chi, I'd like to help you, and I'd like to give you 1,000, we do not just walk away saying, okay, thank you very much. We will have to identify what is it that you wish to donate into, simply because of the missions that we have. So they get to select, that they have to tell us that if they say that, now I'd like to donate into the education fund, then the fund is only channeled to education but nothing else. So how we adhere to the specific funds, specific use principle to help us build that trust. And finally, among fellow volunteers, I think as Buddhists, we strongly hold on to the belief of cause and effect. Every action has its reaction. So when we deal with matters pertaining to trust, I think it's the self-governance. In laymantum, it's fear. That if I know I do something bad, there will be a cause and effect, and therefore I wouldn't go there. So that's our response on how we manage trust.
Thank you, Ms. Ho. Thank you so much. With that note, I think that we come to the end of our panelist discussion. Thank you so much for your participation, and also thank you so much for the panelists. I learned so much throughout the hours. This will be our, technically for APPGM will be the second one, but with UAC together collaboration, this is the first time, but I can assure you this won't be the last time. Till we meet again, the next round of the discussion, I think we kind of opened up some sort of a Pandora box here in terms of talking about interfaith and SDG. So let's keep up with this momentum, and so next time we hope to see you again. Thank you.
Opportunity to hear lifetime experiences and what they've been doing in the welcoming remarks by Yang Berbahagia Dato Sri Mustafa Muhammad, the advisor of the Adovacy Center, followed by Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Denison Jayasuriya, the head of the Secretariat APPGM-SDG. We are also have heard panelists sharing with us on the perspective of the various faiths on the subjects. We have had, as you have seen just now, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Khairul Naim Nordin, representing the Islamic perspective, Mr. Surain Kanda, representing the Hinduism perspective, Ms. Ho Wan Chin, representing the Buddhist perspective, and Ms. Jasmine Adaickalam, representing the Christian perspective. But I'm sure, like all of you know, there's only 4 out of the many faiths that we have in Malaysia. And even when we talk about the different group of, for example, group from the Christian, there's more than just one, Buddhism, etc., etc. Yeah. So, but at least we have 4 today, and we and the whole discussion was well moderated by Dr. Teo Suan. Thank you so much. And she's actually the Director, Parliamentary Policy Advocacy Department, APPGM-SDG. I'm sure she's been introduced just now. Yeah. Not only, I guess at the end of it, the question and answer session was also very a good communication between the attendees and the panelists, and many questions, various questions were asked. But I think at the end of it, all of us who are sitting down there and the panelists here agreed that although the faiths, the different faiths are different, but all of them encourage solidarity and caring for the community who are facing various issues, especially with the economy that's not so good right now. Yeah? Although our ringgit Malaysia has gone up in terms of compared to the other currencies. Okay, but anyway, and another thing that I think everyone has touched on is about the gap between the faith and the religion and the happenings on the ground. So I think we need a well thought out mechanism that is empowerment, education, follow up by organizers of the events, and also probably by individuals who met today. I think on individual basis or representing certain groups, you can do follow up, to the various problem or issues that are being faced by our community. And one thing that I think that I would like to suggest for the future follow up, of course, having number 18 as spirituality to the SDGs is good. But we are talking about 17 SDGs that are out there, that have been established for years. I think it's going to take a lot of effort to put a number 18 in terms of worldwide or even in Malaysia. However, one thing that we can do from the various perspective is that to have maybe events like this, to look at each of the 17 SDGs and discuss it from perspective of the various groups. I think that is an easier way of doing things, because if you want to put number 18 when they've been having the 17 all this while, I think that's going to be a little bit tough. But if you talk about each one of that, because each one, it doesn't matter whichever of the 17, you can still talk about it from different perspectives and what mechanism can be done. So I would like to suggest if there's any follow-up after this that can be done. I don't know, this is a personal suggestion from me. Okay, with that, I think I should just end this closing remark. Thank you again. And also, before I forget, thank you to the team who had worked so hard in making this event a success. Yeah. Good luck to all of you. So until we meet again, and I think it's not too early to wish those who are celebrating Chinese New Year, Happy Chinese New Year, those who will be having Ramadan, also in February, to have a good Ramadan and to make the most out of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. for your closing remark. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have concluded our official program for this Interfaith Dialogue for Grassroots and Sustainable Development Goal SDG. Once again, thank you for joining.